Whenever a great quarterback retires from the game, analysts, both professional and couch, starts to debate whether that signal caller should be in the Hall of Fame. Sometimes it's easy to know if someone is a Hall of Famer, and other times it's a little bit trickier. We can start by comparing the quarterback against other QBs of their era. If that's not enough, then we start looking at the Hall of Fame itself. This is not a bad tactic if you just looked at players who played in the last 20 years. But this tactic is woefully insufficient when discussing players that played before that time span. And it's extremely difficult when the player played before most people who are watching the game were even born. Every time I get into one of these conversations about whether a quarterback should be a Hall of Famer or not, I always get the same response. Well, Namath is in the Hall of Fame, so that means insert your favorite quarterback here should also be in. And I am tired of hearing that statement. So today, I will be talking about how Joe Namath is not an overrated quarterback and deserves his spot in the Hall of Fame. Now, if you're new to the NFL and its history, or you're just a guy or gal who forgets every player in existence if they haven't played in the last 10 years, here's a refresher. Joe Namath is a former quarterback who played for the New York Jets from 1965 to 1976 and played one season with the Rams before retiring at the end of the 1977 season. He was selected number 1 overall by the New York Jets in the 1965 AFL Draft and 12th overall by the St. Louis Cardinals in the NFL Draft that same year. Namath told the Cardinals that he wanted a salary of $200,000 and a new car. The Cardinals agreed, but wanted Namath to sign before the Orange Bowl. Doing this would make Namath ineligible for his final college football game, and as a result, Namath ended up signing with the Jets after his final football game and received a then record $427,000 contract. Namath did well in his career, collecting multiple individual awards, and his shining moment was beating the Baltimore Colts in Super Bowl III, a game which he boldly guaranteed a victory. Now, the biggest knock on Namath is that he is often only remembered for the upset at Super Bowl III. People say that if it weren't for that game and that guarantee, Broadway Joe wouldn't be enshrined in Canton. And while I don't think that's entirely inaccurate, it must be said that it was just a key component to a Hall of Fame career. You see, a Super Bowl win for Namath was like the banana in a banana split. Sure, it's the central part, but you don't spend $4 at the local fair for just a stinking banana, even if the banana is a golden dipped piece of fruit that drastically altered the future of professional football and helped the league become what it is today. Let's look at the other things he accomplished. One of the biggest factors when determining whether a quarterback is a Hall of Famer or not is stats. Namath passed for 27,663 yards. That was good for 10th all-time at the end of the 1977 season. That's pretty good on the surface, but it's even more impressive when you realize that Namath constantly dealt with knee injuries that caused him to miss about a quarter of his career games. Namath led the league in passing yards in 1966, 1967, and 1972. Leading the league in passing 3 times is quite the accomplishment, especially when you consider 19 Hall of Fame quarterbacks have not been able to accomplish this feat in their careers, and a few Canton-bound QBs have not accomplished it either. In 1967, Namath was the first quarterback to throw for over 4,000 yards in a season. This record would last until Dan Fouts broke it in 1979. It must be noted, though, that Namath accomplished his feat during a 14-game season. If you were to extrapolate Namath's 1967 season to 16 games, he would have thrown for over 4,500 yards. Namath also didn't benefit from the significant rule changes of 1978. The Mel Blount rule prohibited defensive backs from contacting receivers after 5 yards, and linemen could better negate the pass rush by blocking with their hands instead of their fists. These 2 rules massively helped open up the passing game. They could have also helped with Namath's passing touchdown total. Broadway Joe infamously has more interceptions than touchdowns, but it wasn't uncommon for a quarterback to have more interceptions than touchdowns in those days. All in all, Namath still retired top 15 in passing touchdowns. That's something guys like Troy Aikman, Kurt Warner, and Roger Staubach can't say. Namath was selected to 5 Pro Bowls, more than these guys. And in 1968 and 1969, he won 2 AFL MVPs. Now, the weight that those awards holds depends on who you ask. For some, 2 league MVPs is 2 league MVPs, especially when they were won over stars like Len Dawson, John Hadle, and Daryl LaMonica. If you are of the opinion that the AFL did have less talent than the NFL, then the 2 MVPs are not all that impressive. I'm in the former camp. Winning an MVP is a tough accomplishment, regardless of the league, and only a handful of players in professional football history have done that feat multiple times. We're talking about players like Tom Brady, John Unitas, Jim Brown, Steve Young, Joe Montana, Peyton Manning, Brett Favre, Aaron Rodgers, and Kurt Warner. Namath even added a Comeback Player of the Year award in 1974 after battling injury. Speaking of that, it's important to recognize that Joe Namath battled knee injuries his entire career. He had some knee concerns coming out of Alabama, but never had much of an issue early in his professional career. 4 of his 5 Pro Bowl nods, 2 of his 3 passing yard crowns, both of his MVPs, and his lone Super Bowl win happened before 1970. Basically, we are judging a man off of 5 seasons, and in those 5 seasons, his numbers and accolades can match up with anyone in professional football's history. 1970 and 1971 saw Namath only play in 9 of 28 games. He had a bounce-back season in 72, and surprise, surprise, when healthy, he was a Pro Bowl caliber quarterback, snatching his final nod of his career. After Namath's comeback season in 74, the Jets bottomed out in Joe's last 2 seasons with the team, and despite being a healthy scratch for the majority of those years, it was clear that Broadway Joe's best was behind him. Now, we have the stats, awards, and championships. But what's a good career without a mythos? Something that's bigger than life. It's without question that Namath had a significant impact as a larger-than-life figure. Football was crew-cut, cleanly shaven, especially for quarterbacks, but Namath had no issue rocking a Fu Manchu with long hair. He also had no problems rocking white cleats, a rarity in those days, and of course, he loved his fur coats. Namath was a rock star, the first rock star quarterback. He was the type of guy that your daughter would have to sneak out just to meet. He was big, and playing in the Big Apple helped his persona. He was dubbed the Broadway Joe by a teammate, a moniker that he would live up to by appearing in multiple commercials, movies, and television shows, even hosting his own program for a brief moment. Namath's guarantee before Super Bowl III was exactly what a wild man would say. Throw caution to the wind and buck the establishment. He did that when he chose the AFL over the NFL. That win against the Colts wasn't the only memorable game that Namath had. In 1972, the Jets and Colts matched up in one of the most exciting games in NFL history. Namath and Unitas battled hard, orchestrating long drive after long drive. It was the young star still in his prime versus the old and wily veteran. Unitas threw for 376 yards and 2 touchdowns, but he was bested by Namath, who threw for 496 yards and 6 touchdowns. The Jets walked away as victors that day. The dictionary definition of overrated is to have too high of an opinion of someone or something, to put too high a value on someone or something. For example, a player is highly rated by the media. The player then doesn't live up to the expectations that the media had put on him, and thus he becomes overrated, even though he never put those expectations on himself. When people say Namath is too highly rated, I ask how. Ask any football fan to list their top 10 quarterbacks in NFL history, and you will never, yes, never, not even with die-hard Jets fans, hear Joe Namath's name. If you were to probe a little bit deeper and ask them to rank number 20 to 11, you still wouldn't see Namath. If you ask which quarterback belonged in the 30 to 21 range, he'd be mentioned, probably. And even then, if he were, he would be in the 30 to 26 range. No one is saying that Namath was the most accurate quarterback. No one says he has the most rings, or the most clutch drives, or had the best arm. No one is saying he was the best mobile QB, or even the best game manager. So who is rating him too high? I'll tell you who. No one. Namath wasn't even a first ballot Hall of Famer. It took him 4 tries to get in. Saying Namath is overrated is like saying banana splits are overrated when you hate bananas. Analysts use Namath as a punching bag when they have no other argument for why other Canton hopeful QBs should be in. Why else would you look at what he has done and scoff? So what else can we do to make this video complete? We have discussed the Super Bowl wins, the stats, the accolades, and legacy. How about this? For a brief time, a very brief time, Joe Namath was New York. Yes, even more New York than the Giants, Yankees, and Sinatra. As of this video, he still holds almost every meaningful passing record for the Jets, and his jersey number will never be worn by another player in that organization. He wasn't Unitas. He wasn't Bart Starr, Lynn Dawson, or Roger Staubach. He was Joe Namath, the most outstanding, outlandish quarterback in all of the NFL.